and the pro-Palestine side has been so brutally exploiting Christianity
Oh, I
and
know.
Jesus.
Israel is bombing millennia-old churches, and the Christian community in Gaza is almost nearly extinct at this point, thanks to what Israel is doing. So, by any objective measure, Israel's campaign in Gaza does not conform to a just war, especially as that concept has been developed in the history of Christian thought. Okay, so with this video, I'm resurrecting a controversy that came up around Christmas time. Now, it's ended up taking me a while to get around to finishing this, but I think Holy Week and Easter is an apt time to address this subject. I'm going to discuss a lot here, so I'll be releasing this in several parts. After part 1, you can go on to watch part 2. To give a little bit of a recap on this, Kim Iverson made this comment about how Jesus cannot really be defined as a Jew, at least in the way that we use the term today. And her main point was that the identity of Jesus has become politicized. So she made this video explaining what she means when she says that Jesus is not a Jew in the way that we define it today. She started this on Twitter. Of course, like on Twitter, people start arguing. It became very controversial. And then these guys here from this podcast, I guess, I don't really watch these guys. I'm not that familiar with them. The one, David Wood, who's this white guy with the glasses. Yeah, I've seen some of his videos before. I think he used to post under Acts 17 Apologetics was his YouTube channel. And I thought some of his videos were kind of interesting, but this is the first time I'm encountering these other two guys. The one of them goes by the moniker The Apostate Prophet, and the other is Michael Jones of his channel Inspiring Philosophy. So this video just really rubbed me the wrong way when I came across it. I thought that these guys are just totally smug. They're not affording Kim Iverson any good faith at all. They just keep mocking her throughout the video for not knowing enough of what she's talking about. But in actuality, Ms. Iverson is directionally correct here, and I think she raises a number of valid points. However, she does, throughout this video of hers, speak with this very authoritative tone as if she definitely knows what she's talking about. It would have been wiser on her part if she had qualified what she was talking about by naming her sources, where she's getting her information from. She has researched this topic as an amateur, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not an expert, so obviously I don't believe that you must be an expert in a topic to try to give your opinion about it and discuss it. However, at the same time, if you are an amateur, you have to approach it with some humility. So she does seem a little bit too sure of herself in discussing this. But again, that doesn't mean that a lot of her core points are wrong. Now, a big part of this controversy pertains to the Israel-Palestine conflict, and these guys are all apparently very Zionist. So they just want to prematurely write Kim Iverson off because she supports the cause of Palestinian liberation, and they don't want to even try to see her side of the argument. So let's play the video. It's 3 hours. The whole thing that they made is 3 hours and 45 minutes long. Obviously, we're not going to go through the whole thing. I'm just going to pick out some clips here. If you want to watch the whole video, it's in the description.
She's been making some of the dumbest arguments I've ever seen on Twitter. Like, I actually screenshot some of them. Like, she said, Jesus and her followers from before his birth believed he was the Messiah, making them automatically not Jews as we understand the term today. Like, do you not, what on earth are you talking about? Like, the Messiah is a Jewish concept. Like, are you this bad at this? Like, that does not mean at all someone's not a Jew. Like, Jews believe in the Messiah. Duh. We
Yeah,
disagree on who the Messiah is, but we agree there's a Messiah. Christians and Jews do. So, that's such a bad argument.
Okay, her key qualifier that this guy Michael Jones overlooks is the clause, as we understand the term Jew today. Furthermore, on his point about both Jews and Christians believing in the Messiah, the main essential difference that separates Jews and Christians today is not belief in a Messiah per se, but that Jesus is that Messiah. And that's why people who believe in Christ are not considered Jews today. Her main point is that identifying Jesus as a Jew, the way that it's used today, would identify Jesus with the modern state of Israel and would lead Christians to support the state of Israel no matter what it does. This gets into the religious aspects of Zionism, especially for Christians, which is a topic that's going to come up a lot in my video series here. Now, it's my view that Christian Zionism is complete bunk, and at this point, if you're somebody who identifies as a Christian, but you're seeing what Israel has been doing to the civilians in Gaza, especially the women and the children, the wholesale butchery that's been going on, and yet you still identify as a Zionist or somebody who supports Israel, then you're either some type of brainwashed religious fanatic who's so invested in the Christian Zionist interpretation of the Bible that you're incapable of thinking that Israel actually might be in the wrong here, or you're just willfully ignorant of what's been going on. You've decided to shut it all out, or you're even a paid shill. There's some type of backroom influence. We know this goes on with social media influencers. There have been influencers that have been offered money to say things in support of Israel. You know, there are claims that the Daily Wire is essentially a Israeli cutout, Israeli propaganda operation. So I don't know which category these guys fall into, but at this point, there's no excuse. By any objective measure, Israel's campaign in Gaza does not conform to a just war, especially as that concept has been developed in the history of Christian thought.
Denying Jesus as a Jew, find me one historian that would agree with her. I can't. Like, even Jesus mythicists would be like, yeah, if he existed, he would have been a Jew. I mean, like, they obviously believe nonsense as well, but I mean, like, I can't find one historian who believes in an historical Jesus that would deny he was a Jew.
Okay, well, there was another video that was made in response to this one by a guy who does this podcast, Strange Theology, and he demonstrates that there are indeed academics who have made some of the same points that Kim Iverson does in her video here regarding how the word Jew is used today versus how it would have been used back in the time of Jesus. How just by the nature of religion itself has evolved, that the meaning has also evolved.
Well, one second though, because that's when she says today's definition of Jew, you could define Jew in a number of ways, right? You could define Jew by belief. You could define it by a certain sort of Jew, like rabbinic Judaism or something like this. You can be talking about biologically, like your DNA. You go back to the tribes of Jews or something like that. You could use this a lot. And when someone says a Jew by today's definition, and there are multiple definitions, you're usually about to get some equivocation. That's usually a sign that someone's about to start equivocating.
Well, that's the thing, is she doesn't seem to understand the word Jew has multiple definitions. So in her video that she posted, she's going over, she's like, well, Jew can't mean religious Jew because we have people who identify as Jew that are atheists. And then but Jew can't mean ethnicity because we have people from Iran or Persia that identify as Jew. And I'm like, are you really this bad? Like, she'll use like criteria to dismiss one definition and not realize that the term Jew has multiple definitions.
Kim Iverson's point is that the word Jew, especially from the 20th century on, has been a term with a lot of different definitions. Is it a race? Is it a nationality? Is it a religion? Is it an ethnicity? Is it all of these things? There's actually a very long Wikipedia article on the very question of who is a Jew. One prominent intellectual who is an authority on this matter is an Orthodox rabbi named Yaakov Shapiro. And Rabbi Shapiro has in fact been on Kim Iverson's program before. So he states that the idea of a Jew being defined by anything other than religion is historically a new phenomenon, coming about only in the past 100 plus years. And he makes a very solid and thorough argument why this is the case. On the other hand, you have the state of Israel, which defines Jew both in the religious sense, but also in this kind of ethno-racial sense, where anybody who is descended from at least one Jewish grandparent could be defined as a Jew. Zionists considered a nationality, and in fact, in Israel, it is officially designated as a nationality, where your nationality is not Israeli, it is Jew. Then you have the anti-Semites, who have their own definition. They would define it more in racial terms. For example, in Nazi Germany, it didn't really matter if you practiced a different religion, if you were a convert to Christianity, as long as you came from that Jewish heritage, you could be persecuted. So Kim Iverson is right. If you want to label Jesus as a Jew, you first have to define what a Jew is, because as we can see in the 21st century, the very term Jew is loaded and complicated.
That point about Jesus being from the tribe of Judah, that's also important, because one of the things they'll argue is that this ultimately comes from the tribe of Judah after the northern kingdoms were exiled and so on, and Judea became what was left. And therefore the word Jew came ultimately from the word, basically, Judeans.
Yeah.
But the word Judean eventually came to mean all the tribe, everyone that was left over, even if they're from other tribes. And eventually we get the word Jew from that. Anyway, the point is, even if you wanted to narrow it down and say, okay, it ultimately means someone from the tribe of Judah before the meaning was broadened. Okay, well, Jesus is from the tribe of Judah. If you wanted to say from the land of Judea, and that's what it meant. Okay, Jesus was born in Bethlehem in the land of Judea. And so it's like any criteria, any meaning of the word you want to come up with, Jesus fits, unless you're specifically saying a modern rabbinic version of Judaism that rejects Jesus. Jesus wouldn't fit into that. Right. But now you're being extremely specific, and that's usually not what we mean by Jew.
That is kind of Kim Iverson's point here, even though Mr. Wood thinks that it's hyper specific, perhaps. But again, she's referencing this term Jew because, again, it's become propagandized. The implication is that Jesus would have been a Zionist who identified with the people of the modern state of Israel. So that's why we have to very clearly define what we mean by Jew.
We also have a problem here, which is that there is a famous example in Esther 2:5, which is I think one of the first instances where the word Jew shifts meaning, or is used as a general term to refer to all of Jews or Israelites. And so it appears here, and from here on it appears more frequently. And by the time of Jesus, the word has become a name for all of those who share the traditional Jewish beliefs and come from those tribes, or who convert even to them. So here is Esther 2:5. It says, "Now there was in the citadel of Susa a Jew, a Yehudi, of the tribe of Benjamin."
So this is after it had started broadening to include anyone who's left over. Any Israelites who are left over at that point are just being called Jews.
Yes, of the tribe of Benjamin, named Mordecai, son of Jair. So this is referring to Mordecai here of the tribe of Benjamin as a Jew, as a Yehudi, which is the very same word that we are talking about. Yehudi in Aramaic, I think, in Greek later in the New Testament, it would be Ioudaios, was the same word used in general for the Israelites. The same word, basically, just in Greek, is used in John to refer to Jesus. So the entire argument here, we cannot really prove that he was from the tribe of Judah, is completely unnecessary. Completely unnecessary. Absolutely not needed.
Now, I should say that I'm only speaking on this as a non-expert. I'm just going off of my own familiarity with this topic and some research that I've done. I'll list and link some of my sources down in the description here. Now, quite a bit of this is probably going to differ, both from Kim Iverson's chronicling of the history of the word Jew and that of these podcasters commenting on Kim Iverson too. So in going through the history of the word, I want to touch on two related but still distinct things. The first is the word as it has historically been applied to people based on their tribe, their nationality, their geographical homeland. And the second is the way that the word has been and continues to be applied to people based on their religion. So according to biblical scholarship, the word Jew is derived from Judah or Yehuda in Hebrew. Now in the Bible, Judah was a great-grandson of Abraham and one of the 12 sons of Jacob. Jacob, who was given the epithet Israel, which means to struggle with God. So these 12 sons became the progenitors of the 12 tribes of Israel, and Judah became one of those tribes. And so a Yehudi, which is the Hebrew word from whence we get the English word Jew, was a member of the tribe of Judah. Now this can get quite confusing because Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, they were not Yehudim. They were not Jews. And Judah and his descendants also were not Jews, at least insofar as that word is used to denote a religion. According to Orthodox Jewish tradition, the Jewish religion didn't begin until the time of the Exodus at Mount Sinai, when Moses delivers God's Torah to his people. And Moses, according to the biblical genealogy, did not live until 3 generations after Judah and his brothers. But even then at Mount Sinai, these people do not yet go by the name of Jew or Yehudi. That became a name that would later be applied retroactively to the people of the Torah religion. Now, in the book of Exodus, which of course tells the story of Moses, the names that are applied to these people are Hebrew and Israelite, not Jew. Hebrew is a word of unclear etymology. In the Hebrew language, it's pronounced Ivri, but it was used to identify the people of Abraham, and of course it later became the name for the language that they spoke. So as these 12 tribes of Israel form a nation and a polity, the tribe of Judah rises to political importance with the establishment of the kingdom of Israel under kings David and Solomon, who are members of the tribe of Judah. After Solomon, the kingdom splits into 2, and so the southern kingdom of Judah keeps Jerusalem as its capital. So that means that the kingdom of Judah retains this political and religious importance. Okay, so it's here at this point in history where the term Judah can start to be applied more broadly, not just as a tribal designation, but also a larger ethno-geographical and a religious one. So now anybody from any tribe could be a Yehudi if he is from the kingdom of Judah. And also because of the religious significance of the city of Jerusalem, being where the temple is and where the Ark of the Covenant is kept, Judah also gets identified with the Torah religion as well. In 586 BC, the kingdom of Judah is conquered by the Babylonians. And apparently it is during the Babylonian exile sometime between the 5th and the 4th century BC that the term Yehudi or Judean becomes kind of this colloquial name for the people who came from the kingdom of Judah and who keep the religion of the Torah. Sometime later, after the Babylonians are taken over by the Persians, the Yehudim are allowed to return to their homeland and eventually, a few centuries later, they are successful at reestablishing an independent kingdom of Judea under the Hasmonean dynasty in the 2nd century BC. But later, Roman expansion in the region in the middle of the 1st century BC renders them a client state of Caesar Augustus. And so this takes us to the Roman province of Judea into which Jesus Christ was born. So by Jesus' time, how was the term Yehudi, or in the Greek of the New Testament, Ioudaios, how was it applied and to whom did it apply? Now, as I've alluded to, there is a fair bit of academic debate over this very question, mostly because of the different connotations of, whatever term you want to use, Yehudi, Jew, Judean, but the way that this term has been used for a tribal group, for an ethno-geographical group, for a national group, for a religious group, and also the way that the term has continued to evolve until this very day. Some scholars believe it was largely an exonym used by Gentile nations like the Babylonians, Persians, Greeks, Romans, for people who both came from that region and also kept the Torah religion. Whereas internally amongst themselves, the Jews would mostly use the term Am Yisrael, meaning the people of Israel. However, that wasn't always the case exactly in the ancient Greco-Roman world. Jewish writers such as Philo of Alexandria and Josephus also used the term amongst themselves as well. So it seems that the term Yehudi or Ioudaios was used more in a colloquial fashion, whereas Am Yisrael was more of an official designation because of its deep religious meaning. Some biblical scholars think that Judean is a much better translation for Ioudaios or Yehudi than the modern word Jew is. But others argue that Judean implies too much emphasis on geography and not enough on religion and ethnicity. So whatever term you want to use, Yehudi, Ioudaios, Judean, Jew, the question that we're concerned with here is, in the historical time and place of Christ, how was it primarily used? Did it designate a nationality, a geography, a genealogy, a religion, or did it encompass all of these depending on the context? And of course, in the ancient world, these concepts like nationality, ethnicity, religion, they tended to overlap and were a lot more inchoate than they are today. So, for example, in the ancient world, your nation was very much bound to what gods you worshipped. But on the other hand, one thing that made the religion of the Torah unique among other religions in the ancient world, and it's something that Christianity would take up and really run off with, and that was this concept of joining this national community through the conversion of your religion. And this is something that we'll pick up on later too. Let's get back to the video here.
Whether or not Jesus was a Jew. Now, I'm going to say Jesus was absolutely not a Jew, and I'm going to give you my reasoning for this. There's been a lot of debate around Christmas about Jesus being a Jew or Jesus being a Palestinian.
There has been no debate.
There has been no debate.
She's the only one who's trying to make this really dumb argument. She's pretending like she's part of like some big like minority. Yeah, we've all been debating this. No, it's just you, Kim. You're the only one who's this bad.
There has not been a debate. It's just you, Kim. You are making that stupid point. And despite everything, despite every source, scholarly source refuting you, you refuse to admit that you were just wrong. You apparently have such a big problem with this that you keep acting like this is a very, very big debate. The world is discussing this right now. No, it's just you.
I don't know if debate is the right word for it, but there has been this kind of split with the politicization of religion in the Holy Land, that you have Palestinian Christians and advocates of Palestine who do identify Jesus as a Palestinian. The most prominent example is this pastor from the city of Bethlehem in Palestine. I believe his name is Munther Isaac. I think it was in his church during last Christmas and this Christmas where they had the nativity scene of Jesus wrapped in the Palestinian keffiyeh scarf. And then on the other side, you have the Christian Zionists who claim that the Israelis of today are the people of Jesus and that Christians need to support Israel. So it does exist on both sides. Maybe you don't want to call it debate, but it is a thing. I don't know what these guys are talking about.
There was the Pope who swaddled the baby Jesus nativity scene in a keffiyeh. This caused a lot of controversy. People were saying he wasn't a Palestinian, he was a Jew. What are you doing? People were lecturing the Pope about this.
Oh, and by the way, of course, Pope Francis is the head of the Roman Catholic Church. I don't think any of these guys in this podcast are Catholics, but in Catholic theology, Zionism, Christian Zionism especially, is considered a heresy. It's most of the Christian Zionists that you're going to encounter are going to be of the Protestant evangelical type. Catholic theology, this is something we can get into more broadly, but Catholic theology teaches that Israel today is the church and Zion is the church. So the modern state of Israel has nothing to do with the Israel of the Old Covenant.
But let's have a conversation about whether or not Jesus was a Jew.
This is a very funny thing she's saying. People were lecturing the Pope about this. I also made a tweet about this. I said, why in the world did these people who organized this put a kefir there? Because I would be not as weirded out by it, but I would also consider it wrong and strange if somebody had put an Israel flag there. It's not just about the kefir. Why are you bringing your?
He is anti-Israel.
Why are you bringing this? Why do you have to bring it into every single freaking thing? And why do you have to force it into this? Why do you have to, desecrate your religious ceremonies and aspects and memorials and whatever it is by bringing the kefir into it, by bringing this conflict into it? Why do you have to do this nonsense?
Well, okay, maybe, you could say that the church shouldn't be taking sides. On the other hand, it is a genocide. I think Pope Francis has said something to that effect, that we are dealing with a genocide. This is a moral issue. This is something that's happening in the Holy Land. As a Christian, I would say that it is something that Christians do need to speak up on. Christians do need to call out what's actually happening. Again, the Palestinians, the majority are Muslim, but it is our brother and sister Christians that are getting slaughtered in this conflict as well. Not that the life of a Palestinian Christian child is of any greater value than the life of a Palestinian Muslim child. If all the Palestinians are Muslims, this is something that should outrage Christians, and we should be calling for an end of it, especially American Christians, that our government is complicit in this genocide by sending money and arms to Israel. Officials like Anthony Blinken or members of Congress who keep supporting Israel and voting in favor of sending them aid, they are aiding and abetting this genocide. They are criminally liable, and God willing, one day they will be held accountable for this. If not in this lifetime, then in the next lifetime for sure. So it is definitely an issue in which Christians should take a side. Maybe they don't have to support everything about what the Palestinian cause represents, but they should at least take a side that Israel must stop this genocide and Israeli officials need to be held accountable for
it. And the pro-Palestine side has been so brutally exploiting Christianity and Jesus.
Israel is bombing millennia-old churches, and the Christian community in Gaza is almost nearly extinct at this point, thanks to what Israel is doing. So, of course, we're exploiting Christianity, as he puts it.
This idiotic point and saying, oh, he was a Palestinian. And when we respond, it's saying, oh, why are you arguing about this? Yeah, because the other side keeps milking this.
In a certain sense, yes, Jesus was a Palestinian. Of course, not in the modern sense, the same way that we can't say that he was a Jew in the modern sense. But the people who are Palestinians today, they can trace their lineage all the way back to the people at the time of Jesus. So, of course, the area of Israel and Palestine has traded the hands of different empires throughout history, from the Romans to the Byzantines, to the Arabs, to the Crusaders, Turks, to the British. So, of course, there's going to be a lot of intermixing from the different conquests. However, there's still a genetic lineage of people who are living in Palestine today, the Palestinians today, all the way back to the natives of that area during the time of the Roman Empire, during the time of Jesus. So in a certain sense, you could say that Jesus was a Palestinian.
In the time of Jesus, nobody officially referred to the place that Jesus was in as Palestine or Philistine or anything like that. People referred to it, or officially, the Roman Empire officially referred to it as Judea, as Judea. It was the region was called Judea. There were Judea, Samaria, and Galilee, and the collective of these places were generally referred to by Jews as Israel, as the land of Israel, while Romans officially called that place Judea.
Actually, in the time of Jesus, Palestine was a name that was already in common use to refer to that region. Even though that you could say that it was an exonym, there were Jewish writers like Philo, a Jewish philosopher from Alexandria. He frequently used the name Palestine in his writings. The name carried over from the Crusaders to the Ottomans, and then after World War I to the British Mandate of Palestine, and hence where we get the name to call the Arabs of the region Palestinians.
After the Bar Kokhba revolt in the 2nd century, the Romans made a direct effort to suppress the Jewish identity, to destroy the Jewish history and legacy in Jerusalem, and officially changed the name to Syria-Palestina, based on the Greek designation of a western coast of the land, based on the early population of the Philistines, which at that point no longer existed. So this was purely a Roman attempt after Jesus's death, a century after Jesus's death, to rename the place and to eradicate any Jewishness about it. They gave it the name Palestina. Before that, nobody referred to that place officially as Palestine.
Sure, it's possible that Emperor Hadrian renamed the province from Judea to Palestine just to spite the Jews for their insolence, but I don't think there's any contemporaneous evidence of that. And to be honest, it sounds like another one of these Zionist talking points that is intended to deny the legitimacy of a Palestinian nation state. To say that there isn't and never has been a real Palestinian people.
I am specifically aiming this at the Christian community who continues to believe that Jesus was a Jew. And I'm also aiming this at the Jewish community who keeps telling the Christian community that Jesus was a Jew. Now, why this matters. There is an entire nation murdering people right now for not being Jews in order to create a Jewish nation.
Stop.
Wait, that's why they're killing them? They're saying, hey.
So I saw her argue this before in posts, but this is so ridiculously absurd. I mean, nobody who has a slight understanding of the conflict would sit here and argue such a ridiculously stupid thing. What a completely retarded moron are you, Kim? Is that really why Israel is slaughtering people because they are not Jews and because they want to establish a Jewish state? And they say, oh, there are all these other people. They are not Jews, so we have to kill them.
So yes, in a certain sense, the Palestinians are being killed because they are not Jews, or at least as the state of Israel defines a Jew. I don't know why that's considered a controversial claim. Much ado has been made about this chant, "From the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free." It's been branded as a call for genocide because supposedly, according to the pro-Zionist side, it implies that all the Jews living in that area will be eradicated and the whole area will be Palestinian. Although defenders will claim it implies that the Palestinians living in that land, they will have their political rights and they will achieve their right to their own sovereign state. But on the other hand, you have the Likud party and its coalition, and their goal, at least for that right wing that is in power, is nothing less than to establish a state of Israel from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea and with a Jewish majority. What's going to happen to the Palestinians living there? Some of them might be absorbed into the state of Israel like there are Israeli Arabs today. However, I don't know how people like this guy who goes by the name Apostate Prophet, Ridvan Aydemir is his real name, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I don't know how you could seriously claim that the goal, at least for the right wing that is in power, is anything other than to establish a state of Israel from the river to the sea with a Jewish majority. And I don't know any other way how they could achieve and maintain a Jewish majority other than exterminating or expelling the majority of the Palestinian Arabs that live there. So in this sense, they're killed for not being Jews. That is one of the reasons why people are saying that this is a genocide.
The Christian population is a very healthy, very fast. The only Christian population in the Middle East that is actually growing in proportion to others. The only Christian community in the Middle East that is actually growing is in Israel. Israel takes care of non-Jewish people. They don't kill people for not being Jewish. This is not what's happening.
A lot of Americans and others around the world think of this conflict mostly in terms of religion, as being between Jews and Muslims. There's just not much awareness of the Palestinian Christians and their plight. They also have been dealing with apartheid and occupation and ethnic cleansing, just as their Muslim compatriots have been. One rather high-profile case occurred in 2022 when IDF snipers shot and killed Al Jazeera reporter Shireen Abu Akleh, who was a Palestinian Christian and a U.S. citizen, it should be noted. A third-party forensic examination concluded that she was deliberately targeted, and her Israeli killers wouldn't even leave her alone in death. Her funeral procession carrying her casket to the Cathedral of the Annunciation in Jerusalem was attacked by Israeli riot police. And in addition to the Arab Christians, Palestine has also been the home to a community of Armenian Christians, going back to the 4th century AD. Very recently, this community, which is located mostly in the eponymous Armenian quarter of Old Jerusalem, this Armenian community has been besieged by these Israeli far-right provocateurs, who they claim are making Jerusalem less and less hospitable to them and their faith.
Wait, aren't there tons of non-Jews in Israel, AP?
There are 2.04 million Arab citizens living in Israel right now, which is about 21% of the country's total population.
I'm going to kill them all to make more room for more Jews.
Israel actively contributes to the prospering and the well-being of non-Jewish citizens, non-Jewish people inside the land of Israel, that are part of Israel, that are citizens of Israel.
Yes, there are Arabs who are citizens of Israel, and they do have representation in government, and there are Arabs who have served on Israel's Supreme Court. However, they still are, in quite a few respects, second-class citizens who aren't afforded all the same legal rights as Israeli Jews. According to Israel's 2018 self-determination law, only Jews have the right to exercise self-determination in Israel. And this is a basic law in Israel, so that means that it determines how courts will interpret the law when it comes to non-Jews. And if such laws were still in force in America today or in any democratic country, they would rightfully be denounced as racist.
The other side, especially the Islamists, the other side are the ones who keep this conflict alive and going, because the other side are the ones who cannot accept the idea that Jews can independently be in charge and have a state here.
Guys like this, with the Israel-Palestine conflict, you're always going to hear about the Islamic extremists. You're going to hear about Hamas, and they're going to say, well, Hamas is the same as ISIS. But never will you hear that it's brought up that there's also fanatical extremists on the Israeli side as well, fanatical religious extremists that also are playing their role in this conflict. That is almost always overlooked, always ignored, but it cuts both ways. And in this conflict, there's also a discrepancy in which side has greater power over the other. So it's not Hamas, it's not the Islamists that have the power in Israel.
This land is Islamic land. It belongs to us. How dare these Jews establish their sovereignty here. We have to fight them. We will never give up our land. We will kill them eventually, and so on. This is what the conflict is about.
It's not just Muslim Palestinians that are fighting against Israel. There are, in fact, resistance groups that have been founded by and led by Palestinian Christians as well. There is the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine and its offshoot, the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine. Now, it should be noted that even though these groups were founded by Christians, their professed ideology is Marxist, not Christian. There's also the other main party among Palestinians, other than Hamas, which is Fatah. That is a secular party, and it also includes Christians among its ranks.
There's a couple of
Yeah,
reasons.
think about what she's saying. She's saying since there is no one meaning of the word Jew, therefore there is no meaning to it.
The term Jew at its core denotes a religious identity. But because Zionism defines Jew along more of these racial terms, the Israeli definition of Jew does have a lot of contradictions.